Hi, I'm Angie Pontani, the burlesque superstar who has spent the last 20 years shimmying and shaking around the globe. I've performed in showrooms, ballrooms, small rooms, and big rooms, every room except a mushroom. Along the way, I've met some amazing people, and I'd like to introduce them to you. Together, we will pull back the curtain to reveal what really happens behind the glitter, feathers, and tassels. So join me for the bump and grind. In the early days, as burlesque emerged in major markets like New York City, LA, New Orleans, Chicago, there was a party starting to happen across the pond too. The Whoopee Club in London brought together a myriad of performers, all different kinds. One of these performers would go on to become one of the biggest names in burlesque. Today's guest is the one and only Immodesty Blaize. Immodesty has become legendary in the field, from the UK scene to an international queen. She was invaluable in helping to bring burlesque to the mainstream. She starred in music videos, international tours, a show in the West End, documentaries, insane amounts of press, and even romance novels. I've always found Immodesty intriguing. And not just for her industrious nature, but also for her pitch perfect imagery. Immodesty lives the glamorous life. But she also puts the muscle in the hustle to get the job done, and she has gotten a lot of jobs done. She enjoys a multifaceted career that's been 20 years in the making. And we've known each other for a long time. We met as babies when the burlesque boom was just beginning to happen, and over the years, our paths have intersected often in this crazy journey of the showbiz life. And I was so excited to have this chat with her. I'm so excited to share it with you. So let's get into the bump and grind with today's guest, Immodesty Blaize. Immodesty, thank you so much for joining me on the bump and grind today. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, Angie, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. It's always, always, always good to talk to you. We've shared many a dressing room, and it's always a delight.
We've shared a dressing room over great spans of time. I mean, I was thinking about when we first met, and it was so long ago. It was in the early 2000s.
Whoa there. You're making me feel like a dinosaur, but yeah, it was so long ago.
You're talking to a fellow dinosaur. We're aging magically.
Yeah, that was what, 2005, 6?
I think it was something. I remember we had first met. I had seen your photos online, and you're like this mystical, glamorous creature. And we're all here in New York, running around in the gutters, and I would see these beautiful photos of you. But then I remember you had emailed me, and you were coming to New York, and we went, and it was so glamorous. We had champagne at the River Cafe, and talked about how we were gonna. Yes, do you remember? We talked about how we were gonna take over the world, and then we drove you back to your fancy hotel in our busted up minivan.
Oh, come on! No, I mean those were salad days, because it really was like, where do we take burlesque? Because it took 20 years for it to have its renaissance, didn't it? And and I remember, because I came over for your New York Burlesque Festival, and it was just, there is a difference between burlesque and cabaret and variety in the UK and then in the States. And I just, all these exotic birds like you, and I met Bob and Dirty and Murray and Kitten on the Keys, and it was just all these incredible these incredible performers and personas, and it was just very inspirational, and you were kind of on it at the cutting edge, back then. And it really was like, conversations that we had weren't just, hey, where are you performing next? It's, who do we speak to next? What are we going to do next? Because it really was like preaching to the unconverted. And it wasn't about, I'm going to audition for this show, or I'm sending my resume. It was like, who do we have to convince next that
Yes.
burlesque is a theatrical genre and they can open their doors for us and give us stage space, because a lot of people were so scared of it, you know, in the early 2000s. They didn't know what it was. And so you kind of had to be an ambassador for burlesque before you even put your own name forward. You had to kind of convince people what it was, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I remember calling clubs on the phone, because that's what you did back in the 1800s. And telling them, oh, I have a burlesque, and they would be, oh, no, it's not, we don't want that. And it seems so long ago now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It was like we had to create our own opportunities, and you've always done that. This is one of the things I love about you. I think, you know, you have the soul of a striptease performer for sure, but you're also so business minded as well. Like, you're always thinking about what you can do to make it bigger and make it better, and how to put on a grander presentation. Was that always your vision?
I think you'll agree with me in saying that we all had to kind of create our own career, because it didn't really exist at the time, and all of us, and should I use the word old school? But, you know, the old school Renaissance girls, but, you know, we had to kind of create our own opportunities, because there wasn't a heck of a lot of representation out there. Well, there weren't YouTube channels as such. We couldn't just Google and, you know, download all these kind of, you know, video to digitized, you know, like we can today. And, you know, I think for me, it was pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that I had gleaned kind of burlesque from snippets of film like Gypsy, or, you know, that scene in The Graduate with the tassels. And obviously I wanted to master that tassel technique early on.
And you did.
And and it was, how do I put these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle? And then obviously there had to be a lot of your own persona in there, because there simply weren't entire routines online that you could look at or see, am I doing this right? Or, you know, it was really kind of learning on the job in front of an audience. Am I going to fall on my butt on stage, metaphorically, and, you know, have silence and tumbleweed at the end of this act? Or are they going to cheer the roof off? And you had to sort of create your own persona on the job. And in terms of building shows, it was literally, you know, how can we create more opportunities? So I think when I got a West End show, that was like, okay, I'm kind of dismantling some of this sort of cultural snobbery that the Brits have about British theatre, and whether burlesque can be a proper theatrical genre. So I think certainly being on the West End, which in fact I brought Murray over to do the West End. So Angie, you're responsible for a lot, because you brought me and Murray together. So Murray did his stint in the West End, and that was like a real landmark in, okay, bona fide theatre is going to accept this. This is great, you know, and that was such a momentum. But then you're like, well, you can't always be same punchline, different costume. What can I do to make it either grander or more different, or bring in other special acts? Or, you know, you got to just keep giving the audience something new, as you know. So I guess it was then, okay, I've just got to keep going now, you know.
Yeah. Keep growing and growing and growing. So how did the West End show, like, that's a huge, huge deal. How did that come about? And I mean, I would imagine that that would have been a very challenging thing to make happen, that there would be a lot of resistance.
Oh, wow.
It was 2011, so we're looking back.
No. That was back in 2005 that we did that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely. It was before I went to Exotic World, and we ran for 5 months. And even now, I'm like, how the heck did I manage to pull that off? 5 months is a long time. And
yes, for sure.
It was really my first taste of having to be a producer and find investors and pitch. And you've got to. I basically did a presentation at music halls, and I was like, you know, if I can make this work at a music hall, I can translate this to a theatre. So, you know, often people will think, oh, you know, she just turned up for an audition, she got a role and she's on stage. It's like, well, actually, it's kind of like writing a TV pitch. You really kind of have to be your own writer, producer, negotiator right from the very start. And, it's anyone who gets any kind of film, book, short film, show, I know what has to go into it. It really is a process, and it's very rare that you get some kind of ready-made product that someone, the big lottery finger comes out of the sky and goes, "It's you," and plucks you out of obscurity and plops you into a show. It's like, TV shows have been, they've had pilots and pitches and proposals, and you've probably been refused 1,000 times, and then eventually something sticks.
I always had this vision. I can't wait till I get to the place where I can just show up and perform, where I don't have to do anything. I just want to show up. And what I realized is that place, it doesn't exist. It never happens. Like, even in my greatest successes, the things I've done with Lady Gaga, I'm like, this is all more work, actually. I'm like, it never ends. The bigger, the higher you go, it's just the more, nothing's handed to you, and it never really gets easier. You might get more comfortable, but it never gets like less work. You're like, oh, I'll just eat my bonbons and go to the show.
And when you think about how much development as well, even with, our acts, oh, wow. I mean, when I think back to some of the acts I put on stage in like 2001, I'm just cringe city, a really bad store-bought Voller's corset with, a few sequins thrown on and, really lame. And, but, that was all part of testing our material on stage and, finding out what works. I mean, I think about what music I used to use, and, I didn't arrive with this ready-made kind of album of stuff I was going to use. I tried everything from, Rolling Stones to electronica to Gene Krupa to 30s to blues, you name it. I tried it as a soundtrack, and it's just what you do. Sure. You see what works and what matches your stage energy,
No, and it helps you, I feel like, develop your character. And like what you were saying before about how there was no ready-made YouTube or social media, I think we were really able to find our originality and our uniqueness within that because we weren't inspired or really influenced by the things other than the Legends videos that we had access to. It was like you were really forced to make your own way. And if that involved a couple costumes that were from the store with sequins on them, then so be it. I did it too.
I had some real cringe costumes, but I think that when you have like a real organic path like that, it kind of gives you longevity because you don't take the knocks so much, and you're like, it's all part of the process. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
I certainly didn't come out with like 100,000 rhinestones on day one. That's for sure.
No. No one was birthed into burlesque that way. I think we all.
Oh no!
I won Exotic World in a dress that I bought at a vintage store that was covered in sequins. Yeah, that would not happen today. That wouldn't happen. So when you started in the UK, because you are really credited with raising the burlesque flag over there. Like, you really are the poster girl of that. So what was the scene like at that time? What was going on when you did first start?
Tumbleweed with a few bits of kind of dust floating around. I mean, it's unfair to say that, there was no performance going on. There was. But was it burlesque, and was there stage space dedicated to burlesque? Not really, no. And actually, casting my mind back, there was this one club that was kind of pivotal in bringing all these sort of disparate performers together, and it was called the Whoopee Club, and it ran once a month in this beautiful old building in the west of London. And every month they would chuck us this theme, and they'd say, go off and do, $1 Million Mermaid or Femme Fatale, and they'd chuck us this theme. And we'd all go away and cobble together a costume and an act. And I guess it was a bit like burlesque boot camp for a year. And, if your show didn't go down well, you wouldn't get invited back for the next month. So, you had to turn in a good show. I think we were paid like $10 for a show. So, you're running at a loss, seriously. But it created this incredible creativity amongst us all, because we had these kind of random acts who we'd been doing, say, some of them had been doing performance arts, some of them were kind of into the rockabilly scene, some of them were into the vintage scene or the fetish scene. Mm-hmm. So it brought all of this kind of melting pot of performers who didn't really have a platform, but we found ourselves together and kind of were all inspired by each other. And I remember, for example, I performed a lot with a performer called Walter, and he was amazing. You couldn't define him, and so he would do an act where he would be, in absolutely immaculate Savile Row tailoring, bowler hat, walking cane, looked absolutely incredible, and you could just make out a Louboutin heel under the suit. And then he would strip off down to Liza Minnelli and do cabaret, and you were like, wow, and it was so stunning and beautiful in the most beautiful vintage lingerie and stockings. And he did another act, for example, that was he came on as a trucker in a cowboy hat, whips off the cowboy hat, out tumbles all this long blonde hair, and he was Tammy Wynette doing Sometimes It's Hard to Be a Woman, and then he rips open the shirt and he's in a pink baby doll doing Britney, Oops, I Did It Again, and finishes on the microphone saying, "Who's your daddy now?" And it was like, oh my God, did I just watch? What did I just watch? Am I on acid? And it wasn't drag, you couldn't define it, but it brought all of these kind of, you could be super creative on stage because, we didn't have Sharon Christina's burlesque out there. So people weren't coming to a show saying, I'm expecting 100,000 sequins, a pin-up hairstyle. They came with, I have no idea what I'm going to see. And so we gave them, I have no idea what you're going to see either. And, it was really out of the Whoopee Club that I think it broke down a lot of barriers for people giving us stage time. And yeah, it was great.
And did the audiences love it? Were they just going completely insane?
It was like burlesque rock and roll. I mean, it was true variety, and I think it was the spirit of burlesque. You could push a boundary. Some of the acts were super avant-garde. Some of them, I remember a duo doing like Mexican wrestling duo on stage. There were all kinds of, speciality acts coming out of it. Paloma Faith, I don't know if I'm sure you know her in the States,
yes.
Singer. She was born out of burlesque, and she was a magician's assistant in the burlesque shows.
Wow.
Yeah, we had all kinds of big acts that were born out of those super experimental days.
I remember hearing about the Whoopee Club. That was one thing that definitely, made its way over here to New York, that we would hear about this in the amazing shows and see the pictures. And actually, they brought the Pontani, when they were in the Fringe Festival, we were like two ships passing in the night. You were in for their first run there, and then we came in. And that's how I met a lot of people as well. That's where I first met Matt Frazier and Russell, who does the Empire Strips Back. So it's so funny. It's so long ago how those connections were made. We're actually in person and not on Instagram.
Oh, exactly. I mean, the connections we all made through New York Burlesque Festival, through Exotic World, and not just that, but, when you're used to only seeing performers from your own country, you kind of get this ever decreasing circle of inspiration if people aren't looking outwards at, what's going on in other countries, what's the style like. And, I remember Exotic World first time I did Exotic World in Vegas was 2006. And I was just blown away by the variety and Julie bursting away out of a huge pink bubble. It was like, oh my goodness, there's just so much inspiration here. But also this very respectful community. Everyone respected each other's material and, each other's persona and, that kind of sharing and being able to see other performances with other cultural references. It's just, golden days.
Oh yeah, I so clearly remember that Exotic World and seeing you there. And what made you decide to want to come over and to ultimately compete in that? Did you feel like this is kind of something I have to do? That's a big, I always feel for people coming from overseas, it's a big decision to do that.
Absolutely. It was Dixie. It's all Dixie's fault. So I came over to Los Angeles to do a show at the Orpheum Theatre. And I looking back, I must have looked very English. And, I came on in a very sort of Victorian bustle and a huge sort of lace parasol, and I did my bump and grind. But it was a show for Dixie's 80th birthday.
We were there. I just remember that.
Yes.
We were there too. We shared a dressing room.
I know. And it wasn't her 80th birthday. She'd lost count and she was only 79. And and we were all bowing to the Queen, who was actually a year younger than she thought she was. And and she, they emailed me and just said, look, Dixie absolutely adored your performance. And she said, look, we've got to have her at Exotic World. And I just thought, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. No way. They're all going to think, who the heck is this? What is this English rubbish? And I thought, well, these are all Americans. They do the real deal. And, I'm not real deal enough for that. And in the end, I thought, it's Vegas. I've got to do it.
Yeah.
So I went over thinking, oh man, they're going to laugh me off stage. They're going to say, what is this girl doing? But you know what? I scooped best debut, so it was all good. And then I came back for 2007 too. So I owe Dixie a lot. She invited me, and I took her up on the offer.
As I think we all owe Dixie a lot. Dixie, I really feel, is the key to the neo-burlesque movement, like not just spurring up, but continuing. Like by creating Exotic World, by creating the pageant, I think she just really created this amazing hub, and it's so everybody that I talked to who started performing, in the late 90s, early 2000s, everybody always brings up Dixie, and it makes me so happy because I know that she would love that so much, that we're all still talking about her, and she was so amazing.
Oh yeah, her memory is very much alive. Yeah, we we all owe a debt of gratitude to her.
And so then you won in 2000. You came back. You won Best Debut. You came back the following year, and you won in 2007. And what was that like? Were you over the moon? Was it like check?
Well, that was just amazing. I wasn't expecting at all, because again, it was a little bit like, who is this girl coming over from UK? And I thought, okay, I can only bring what I can pack in a suitcase. I can't bring any like prop or oversized fans or anything like, grandiose. And I was like, what can I do in 4 minutes? And I just thought, just bring the bump and grind. And so I thought the hips are going to have to do all the talking. So I just, walked on and bumped and grinded. I don't know what the past is for bumped and grind. But, and that was kind of a crazy year because they were switching venues. So we were at this place called Crave that I don't even think exists anymore. That was before they went to the casino. And I ugly cried when I got my trophy. So there was that. And I did come away from it just feeling like, okay, I really wanted to embody the American striptease artists of the mid-century. I really wanted to embody that and that energy. And, it was a place where I could feel accepted with my curves and the way my body was. And it was like just having, a kind of stamp of approval from the legends and from all of you guys to say, it's okay, you nailed it. you're channeling that spirit, and particularly I didn't realize Tura Satana was one of the judges my year, and I was such a huge fan. I was just so humbled to realize that she was one of the judges. I'm like, oh my goodness, she voted for me. Oh wow, and it really was. I'd been such a huge admirer of the Russ Meyer girls. These women, like I just thought, I have a body like that. There is a place for a body like mine, So, yeah.
Oh, totally. And you talk about that a lot too, about like just showing that it's okay to not be a size 0 in this performance world. And I mean, especially looking back at the time when we first started, where that message was definitely not out there as much as it is now. I mean, it needs to be out more, but I really feel like burlesque and so many of the performers in burlesque helped to push that message of like, you can be sexy and not be a size 0, and your body can fluctuate and change, and you can have big curves, and you are still sexy. And I feel like you've been a big champion of that message. It's something you've talked about and that you show with your sexiness and your curves all the time.
Oh, I mean, I am the mistress of fluctuating body size. I've been like every size. And, apart from, there are some constraints, as in, these are expensive costumes. I kind of need to fit into them. I can't just like chuck another $20,000 on just because I've like grown too skinny or grown too curvy. So there are kind of constraints, but I don't tend to worry too much about what my dress size is. For me, it's about what relationship you have with your body on stage. And you're right when you say, it was more in the earlier days where we just didn't see, or certainly not in the UK, and I don't know how it was in the States, but the poster girl over here was Kate Moss. And so oh my goodness. So I had a press quote written about me back then that was literally word for word, she looks like she ate Kate Moss for breakfast. Ouch! And it kind of stung at the time. And now I'm like, you know what? I'd have that embroidered on a T-shirt. Because I think that, I'm really okay with looking like I ate Kate Moss for breakfast.
Eat her for breakfast.
But I'm like, oh, honey, I think that a lot of, we've made so much progression with so much more tolerance for curves now. Thank goodness. Mm-hmm. And people being used to, I guess more used to seeing a woman happy in her own skin and owning her space and owning her curves and, not in sort of turmoil about what dress size she is. And certainly with burlesque, it's the perfect genre for being able to express yourself the way you want to, because you create your act. You are the mistress of, how you want your costume to be and what music you're using and what kind of persona you want to be on stage. And in that sense, it's, you get to step into your own power, which was something that, I definitely wanted to champion, right out of the gate. And now I guess, we're not 21, Angie, you and I, and nope. I'm just like, you know what? The work doesn't necessarily need to be done on the curves anymore, but now I'm just saying I am 44 and I just packed out a theatre of 4,000. So,
yes,
I'm going now for you can age, girl, you can age, and it doesn't matter what age you are. And I think the burlesque legends are a testament to that too.
Yeah, and that's something else I wanted to talk to you about, because we're very close in age, and it's it's interesting because I remember starting out in my career too. I was like, oh my gosh, thinking about the body image thing, because we would do shows, and it wasn't really something I ever thought about, because where I grew up, everybody really just looked like me. We were all little with big butts, and then when we got out there, I remember people would come up to us after the show and be like, "You're so brave to go up there with your thunder thighs." That's the one thing somebody said to me that I was like, wait, thunder thighs? Oh. And I was like, okay, all right. Okay, I'll squash you with my thunder thighs and see how brave I am. Like, but then I became more conscious of it, and I think it is amazing that burlesque was able to be such a really big part of that, and I think that was a lot of its appeal to audiences as well, and women being comfortable and sexy in their own skin, and that happiness and freedom is really, I think, what sells it. That's what sexy is.
It is. It's the happiness and the freedom, and I think I just noticed how there were so many women who came to the shows, and they would then gradually bring their husbands and their partners, and they just, I think, felt included, and they could relate to, oh my God, she's got a bit of cellulite and she doesn't care. Click, 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 click. Maybe I don't have to care either. And it was just, hey, look, I'm not going to say I don't have a bit of scaffolding and good dance tights and decent lighting, and I still do what I can to kind of minimize the flaws. But I don't mind anyone seeing a bit of shaking cellulite. That's fine by me. The performance is so much more than that.
Oh yes, absolutely. But people love it, and I think it creates an energy, and it's all about that freedom that is burlesque. And so with aging in burlesque too, I remember when I started, and I was like, I was literally a teenager when I started burlesque, and I was like, I'm gonna definitely retire by the time I'm like 30. Ooh, I'll be so old. And now I'm like, oh girl.
Yeah.
So, yes. But I do feel that burlesque's next message that it really delivers is that, there is no aging out. Sexy doesn't have an expiration date. We look at all these amazing legends in their 70s and 80s who are selling sexiness on stage, and now we're catching up.
Absolutely. I remember being absolutely blown away by a Satan's Angel performance.
Oh,
and
gosh.
Oh my goodness, in Vegas. And I just, it blew the roof off. I'm like, what did I just watch? That was amazing. The energy. And there's something about, a woman's power, the older she gets. And you really can hold an audience in the palm of your hand,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it doesn't, you don't age out of that, because once again, it comes from the inside. So it's like, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to use a different foundation now just to handle like these wrinkles right here.
Oh,
like,
yes. Yes, I have super, super, super supportive dance tights now. I'm like, yeah, I'm not just going to I'm not going to free stocking it tonight. I'm having dance tights,
Oh, no. Well, I was at Satan's Angel. One of the legends did tell me you should always wear fishnets. Like, I can't remember if it was Satan's Angel or who it was, but she was like, you should always wear fishnets. I was like, okay, yes. Thank you. Well, the legends give a lot of advice, solicited and unsolicited. But speaking of legends, so did you produce the documentary Burlesque Undressed? Did you produce that?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you created this documentary that was a historical. It really, you laid it down, and you involved a lot of legends and the telling of it. Tell me about that.
I did. I really wanted to join the dots, because I felt like I had told the story of burlesque maybe 10 million, 1,000, billion, gazillion times to be able to, like we were saying, get on stage and actually open the theatre door. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to just tell this story, and then it's done. And I can say, I just watch the DVD,
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of chart its progression from the UK to the States as well, because we had kind of slightly different traditions of
yes.
Victorian burlesque and satire and ironic cabaret, and then really the classic mid-century striptease that really was popularized stateside, even though it was. You could argue, it was Lydia Thompson who brought it over from the UK, but no, I mean, really, it was an American speciality, if you like, and I just I just really wanted to join the dots and honor the legends before, they passed on. I felt it was really important for their voices to be recorded, and then for the voices of some of the modern day performers to kind of give their perspective as well, because with the Renaissance that we've kind of experienced, it's evolving into yet another
Yes.
style and form, and I just thought, let's just do this little time capsule. I mean, it wasn't so little, it was a tough thing to produce because, getting any kind of movie made is, again, there we go, pitches, proposals,
Yes.
getting your producers on board, and, there are always glitches along the way. And, it was, again, a labor of love, and it wasn't quite how I envisaged it, but when you're dealing with certain budgets, you have to make some sacrifices. So yeah, I mean, the end product was, I was pleased to have kind of, committed to film, just a journey, and just marking in time. Okay, this is a little bookmark for joining the dots and where we're at and where we've been, and let's see where we go forwards.
Absolutely. And I think, burlesque, people have no idea about the history of burlesque and how rich it is, how deep it is, and that it's truly a legitimate form of theater. And since it's come back into the public eye, and when people become aware of it, I think it blows their mind. And you want to go and you want to find out more information on it. And there really isn't that much out there. So I think it's amazing that you added to it.
And in fact, some of the most fun books to read have been things like Anne Corio's This is Burlesque, and actually just show me the pictures.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that way, we could only kind of glean some of our acts by just seeing some of these stills and these pictures, and then kind of fill in with our own sort of movement, and
imagining
exactly
what you need to do. But that's why I think it's so great that you did create this, and that it is out there now as a reference for people and a visual reference, and to see all the legends. I was watching it the other night to just refresh, and seeing Satan's Angel was so magical to see her.
And her potty mouth.
Her potty mouth, yes. Oh, Satan's Angel was, whoo!
Yeah, and then especially juxtaposed with the incredibly elegant April March, who just had a slightly different way of phrasing things, and it was just like, these legends are just pure gold. We're so lucky to have been able to kind of pass down some of their stories.
Oh, yeah. Satan's Angel's like, I slept with this one and that one and this one. And April March is like, I dated everyone.
Exactly.
I was married 27 times.
But did you have that experience with Blaize Star? Because you had recreated one of her acts, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And Blaize was very I don't want to say reclusive, but she wasn't very open to communication. So I actually ended up getting her address and writing her a series of letters asking her permission to recreate her act. And she actually told me no. She said no. She was very, she had a lot of opinions and feelings that she didn't hold back. She was a little bit like Satan's Angel, but not as crude. But so I had to send her photos of myself and tell her what I was envisioning to do and really sell her on letting me do the act. And eventually she did, but I would say that my greatest claim to fame is that I got on Blaize Star's Christmas card list. She sent me Christmas cards every year after that.
Oh, my goodness.
I was like, I'm on Blaize Star's Christmas card list.
That's amazing.
But you know who you had, and that was Joan Arlene. And I loved her interview. And I do have a fun story about her. When I was working at the Burlesque Hall of Fame, she called me up one day and she said, Angie, I was just looking at the set list, and Tempest Storm was closing out the show, because Tempest Storm always closes out the show. And Joan said, she goes, I see the Tempest is closing out the show, but I think that, I have a very large prop, so I should probably close out the show just to make things easier for everyone. I was like, oh, girl, I love you, Joan, but I don't want Tempest to murder me in my sleep, so no. It was so like they just never stopped working.
Exactly. Hustle to the very end. I love it.
Yes.
It's like once a showgirl, always a showgirl.
Oh, completely. But so Joan also said, she was talking about, you know, as you advance in your career and the more successful you get, you know, how you have to present yourself. And it takes money to make money. So you have to put yourself all in terms of your costumes and your props and your appearance. And even, you know, Joan didn't say this, but this is something that I've always felt like, even when you show up at the club, if I'm charging somebody a very good amount of money to have me there, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to look professional. My costume is not going to be in an IKEA bag. You know, it's all about creating this full sensory, you know, persona. And I feel like you just nail the hell out of that. So I mean, sometimes I look at your Instagram and I'm like, God damn it, what did I do wrong?
Come on. My goodness, I've never seen you anything less than flawless. I remember you rocking up in Italy. We were in Rome, and I could just see you across the room, immaculate hair. I just ran up to you. I was like, oh, a showgirl, come here.
Kindred spirits.
Oh, yes. And I love the fact that at the time, Sis, she was like, 2? And you were like proper Gypsy Rosalie on the road with your little girl, with husband playing in the band, and you know, your mother-in-law. I was just like, she is just all showgirl. I love it. And she's in Italy, and they've done a road trip as a showbiz family. This is like the ultimate coolest family you could ever imagine, you know.
Oh, thank you. I know. I want Sis to have stories when she grows up.
Oh gosh, she will. She will.
Yeah, totally. So Gypsy. But do you curate that? Like, do you really consciously about what you put out there and how you present yourself?
I believe in authenticity. So yes. I don't really care if someone kind of rolls up in a pink juicy tracksuit. You know, that's cool. I don't care. Yeah. You know, I have no judgment. And you know, maybe that's part of the persona too. And I love that. And just for me, I kind of feel like I don't want to put things on stage that's me playing a role. Yes, I'm a more exaggerated version of myself. I'm not going to bump and grind my way through the supermarket. So yes, there are things I do on stage that there's no way I could do, you know, walking out to get a pint of milk or whatever you do. But, you know, I still feel like it should reflect who you are, you know, for you to have that authenticity. And so, you know, bring things from your life onto stage, or from stage onto your life, and you know, each one nourishes the other, kind of thing.
But I do think there is a kind of a wheel of like, when you put yourself out there at this professional level, just from the moment that you walk into the club and from the moment that you leave, it affects how people treat you, you know. So this is something I always say to performers, you know, put out how you want to be treated, and it will come back to you.
I think so, very much so.
I think it's something in burlesque that it's like, you know, to treat it as a profession, to take it to that next level, to enhance it and make it very, very, I don't know what the word is, professional.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. But I think that also comes down to even things like just, you know, I like a ritual of, you know, laying out my dressing room, and I've got my special towel, and, you know, I have my my travel candle and whatever else it is. And I just make sure it's a ritual because, you know, let's face it, you know, the grandest theatres can have the crappiest dressing rooms and they're hideous. Absolutely. And you're like, how can I come out of this dressing room looking like $1 million? You know, this is a tough call. So, you know, anything you can do that kind of psychs you into, this is my space and this is my ritual, and I have my breathing ritual before I go on.
Yes.
And, any way that you find to just put yourself in that area of it's careful, it's carefully done. And, as of this second, everything is careful. And, it just means that half the nerves are taken away before you go on stage because you've prepared.
Oh, for sure. And I think having a ritual is important because it's true. When you travel around, you're in so many different spaces. And yes, some of these dressing rooms are just so absolutely crappy. And you're hobbling down these hideous, dirty stairs to burst on stage a vision of perfection. If the audience only knew you just stepped over a dead rat.
Exactly. I think we did in the West End. There was a mouse that lived in row E or F or something. And it was like, is the mouse going to make an appearance tonight? And we didn't have any AC in the dressing rooms, and it was like, oh man, you'd come off and you were just wet through. It was like, how many brands of pasty tape can I go through before I find the one that sticks?
That's the worst. So universally, dressing rooms can be terrible. We know that. Air conditioning can be spotty. In all your travels, what is your favorite audience to perform for? What country or city or region, where do you feel that the people are really giving it to you?
I think probably one of the most insane, cheering, and you'd think Elvis had just parachuted through the ceiling, was actually in South Korea. And I possibly because they haven't seen very much burlesque. And it was like, hey, is Liberace behind me? Or, did Madonna just, photobomb? Or, this is nuts. Yeah. So that was an absolutely incredible. They just loved the live entertainment. But I'd say for more regularly where I've traveled would definitely be the States. Such warm audiences, really, really warm, and appreciative. And also appreciative of if you do like a kind of special striptease move, they notice. And they'll notice a certain fastening or way of doing a reveal. They're like, oh, haven't seen that before. And you're like, hey, I wasn't expecting a huge applause for that, but they noticed. And then Italy, because they love a woman who looks like she's been eating spaghetti. And completely. Curves, the Italians, they will be literally at your feet.
And I've also found in Italy, they literally do not care how old you are. Like, I have seen women perform in Italy, and I'm like, wow. And the ageism there just does not seem to play in at all. It's just passion and pasta.
Totally. Oh, yes, absolutely.
I'm getting that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. I want your built by spaghetti on hot pants because it needs to go over my butt cheeks.
Oh, that's a great idea. That's a good idea.
Hips built by spaghetti.
Seriously, listen, it builds you strong. I'm going the way of Sophia Loren. That's my plan. So now, you've been in burlesque for a while. It's been a long road. Do you still find inspiration easy to come by to create new acts and performances and shows?
Oh, that's a great question. Sometimes, no, I would say that there are periods where I'm like, oh, I just don't want to see another rhinestone, because I sometimes I just need a visual break, or our interests evolve, and I've been spending a lot of time coaching women with mind body eating and eating psychology, and really going back to the roots of one of the first reasons why I loved burlesque is really helping women around the kind of body acceptance. But I will always be inspired with burlesque. And, I created something new last summer, and it was like, oh, I'm exercising that muscle again. This is great. Let's do a new costume. And, I think that, sometimes you want an ice cream, and sometimes I've eaten too much ice cream, and I do have some of those moments, and I don't ever want to feel like I'm going on stage and just dialing it in. I really feel strongly about, giving people your passion when you're on stage. And, that's not to say I'm sitting there going, oh, I'll only step out of bed if I'm in the right mood, darling. I mean, not going to those extremes, but also if you're feeling like flat lemonade, don't go and give that to an audience, So, I've retired a few acts where I'm like, oh, I've just done that too much. And there's just too much stage dust in the costume that no amount of dry cleaning is going to take out. Just retire that act. It's not magical anymore. It's not sparkling anymore. You can buff the rhinestones as much as you like, honey. Just do a new act. And and I think it's okay. I think it's okay to have times when you feel inspired and times when you don't. I think we all need a break, and certainly if you want to, if you're going to keep on for another decade and another decade and another decade, it's good to go and stock up on inspiration and also just to see what new acts are coming up, because I think it's great that there's this evolution of styles and, new material coming through. And I love it.
No, it's good. I find sometimes when I just keep doing the same act, I'll be on stage and I'm like, you are literally just walking through this. You have to put this away now. You know it too well.
Yes.
It's just like part of you. You're not even here. I don't even know where I am. I'm like, I'm not even here.
Right. And have you ever had where you could be, I don't know, you could be like in a coffee shop and one of your tracks comes on and you're counting yourself into your 5, 6, 7 and you go, oh my God, this is what oh no, turn it off. And you've suddenly got
my arm will move. Something will go. I'm like, oh my God, it's like my muscle memory is doing my routine.
Yes.
At Target.
You're like, okay, retire that act now.
Yes. I have definitely done that. When you started out, when you were at the Whoopee Club, did you envision this was going to be your life? Did you think this was it? I found my path. Here I am. Could you have imagined such a thing?
No, not for a million years. No, yeah. I just went with it because it was this kind of, it was a wave. And, even when I guess my first break was getting to do a pop video for Goldfrapp, and then people started booking me and I'm like, you want to book this? Oh, okay. Okay, great. And then I kind of gave up the day job and, I just thought, okay, let's see where this takes me. I'm in the moment. And then, as I was able to be more and more creative, I'm like, this is great. This is fun. This is inspiring. And, and no, absolutely not. I wouldn't have thought there would be any kind of longevity in that. I just thought, oh, it's one of those avant-garde kind of trends. It'll come and go. And look where we are now.
I know, right? And so the Goldfrapp video, that was a huge break. And that was a big step, I think, for you to help to bring burlesque into the mainstream and into people's homes. I mean, television, being in a video, you can be on a million stages, but when you're on TV, it's like huge audience. Like it would take you years to hit that audience. And you were twirling in that video, right?
I was.
Amazing. That's amazing.
That was a funny story. Paul Raymond, the infamous Paul Raymond of the Raymond Review Bar, he owned half of Soho, or 90% of Soho, the titty bars. He had a porn magazine empire. He was Soho, London nightlife royalty. And he was, this is how long ago it was. He was still alive, and the production company had gone to him and said, do you know any tassel twirlers? He said, what? That's defunct. That doesn't exist anymore. I knew a girl in Berlin maybe 10 years ago, but nobody does that anymore. And I was working in film production. And so, everyone from the production companies who all had their offices in Soho at the time, we'd hang out in the same pubs or bars or, turning in an all-nighter to get an edit finished. And I happened to hear someone mention, we need a nipple tasseler. And my ears just went zing. I went, I can do that. And, it was like, standstill. What? How? What? Why? I was like, don't ask. Where's the casting? I'll come.
Yeah.
And no one knew I had this extra talent that I'd been moonlighting and doing under the then stage name of Tiara, you know. And,
wow.
Yeah, I know that's a proper, you know, it's like destiny. It's one of those strip names. So yeah, and then after, you know, I became Immodesty, and I did the video, and in actual fact, Paul Raymond, he was this. I mean, he did these beautiful reviews in Soho, and he had one called, he wanted to call it Tits, and he couldn't have tits on a billboard, so he called it This Is the Show. And he just used, I know, and he just used the capital letters and then had the words in tiny, tiny type that you'd have to get a microscope to look at it. And that's how he got away with putting tits on a billboard. So I took my inspiration from him. And the first incarnation of the Tease show, I called it the Immodest Tease Show. And so I just had like a full page in Time Out with tits. And I was like, you know, you can take some of the lessons from the old masters, you know.
Yes, you should. They knew. That's why they were masters. Oh my God, I love that. That is so smart.
I think all of these old legends and hustlers, you know, they knew how to hustle and get round the laws. And, you know, even with our tradition of tableau vivant in the old windmill theatre. And I interviewed one of the old windmill girls once, and she said, you know, it's true, the myth that you could be naked on stage, and it was like a PR exercise. They'd set a mouse loose on the stage, so all the girls would go, ooh, and run off the stage naked. And, you know, it was a bit of a staged publicity stunt, she said, because, you know, we could be fully naked so long as we were still, so that we argued that it was like seeing a painting in an exhibition or in the gallery down the road. And she said, I used to literally get put onto a bicycle and they would just push me across the stage. As long as I stayed still, I'd just go phew, across the stage, and that would be my tableau vivant. Blink and you'll miss me, but I was naked, you know.
And still on a bicycle, which would be hard and possibly uncomfortable.
Right. Yes.
I hope that seat was padded.
Right.
So you did the music video for Goldfrapp. You've done film. You've performed in stages all over. You've also published novels.
Oh, yes. Oh.
What's that? What inspired you to do that?
You know, if you're a creative person, there's lots of ways you want to create things. And I just was a huge Jackie Collins fan. And I just love these really campy, you know, tongue-in-cheek, sort of over-the-top, exaggerated, kind of took me back to the days of Dynasty. And I thought, you know, with all the characters that I've read about in, you know, the old burlesque books and stories from, you know, all the legends that we spoke to, some of the stories that have come out from that era, and then also some of the stories that, you know, that we share in dressing rooms and everything, and some of the crazy scrapes and, you know, as you and Murray call them, shit shows that we've seen, that we've done, and and you know, there's some absolutely hilarious stories. And I just thought, you know, Jackie Collins wouldn't be able to write a showgirl based one as well as I could. I'm gonna have a go. And so I wrote 2, and they were published by Ebury, and they really were you know, if anyone can study how Jackie Collins made her books into a page turner, it was a real art. And I had so much fun writing them. And a lot of them, you know, I actually went out and stayed in Vegas for a few weeks just so that I could live as one of the strippers would live, you know, because you don't live on the strip, you live in one of the suburbs. And I was like, I really got onto their time zone, and like going to work out in the gym at 4 a.m. when you finished at the club, and understanding the tears of the hustle. And I took it seriously doing my research and got some of the stories from the strippers about some of the famous actors who they hosted, and there are more truths in those books than you realize. And I disguised a lot of them. I had to disguise all of them, but my editor would take some of them out and go, look, Immodesty, you've just gone too far. Nobody believes that. And I think that's the one that really is true.
That's so amazing. But I mean, I just imagine that writing a book would be so hard. Are you a workaholic, Immodesty?
Well, I just, yes, but, I think you have to have fun when you're working so that you can bring some of that joy out. So, if I'm tired of twirling the tassels, I like to just, draw something or paint something, or, make
you're an amazing artist. You're an amazing artist.
Thank you. I guess I just used to draw the women who I wanted to look like. So I guess burlesque for me was like this art installation that got out of hand, and
and the train keeps running. No. But I do think too, when you are an artist, when you are a creator, I know for myself it's the same thing. I don't write books, but I'm like in the kitchen, I'm like, I must create something here. I'm like, sis, I want to sew a dress for my daughter. It's like I always feel like I have to make something.
Right, exactly.
I just have to make something.
Yeah, I think when you give on stage, you kind of want to make stuff for people and for them to enjoy and just make it and put it out there. And by the way, I follow all your recipes. Oh. My goodness.
There's a good one coming.
How do you stay so slim is what I want to know, because if I ate your recipes every day, oh my goodness.
Well, and listen, I have been, and especially since quarantine happened and I'm not really moving a lot and I won't be working for a long time, I have been working out every day because, again, aging as well. I'm like, if I don't stop, it can't catch me. My hips won't go if I just keep moving them. I got to keep my hips and my knees and everything moving. So I just keep moving. And chasing around a kid is a really great form of exercise as well. But do you think, so, with your book too, because I feel like as an artist and as a burlesque performer, I don't want to say more than a burlesque performer, but you're multifaceted. You're an entertainer, you're a personality, you're so much more than just on stage. You have all these other outlets. And I think that that's very important for longevity and success in a career in entertainment as well.
It's true that if you can create in several different ways, you just kind of get inspired by looking out of the box, which, for example, I'm sure you do with, being inspired by where you come from and by all the, the incredible shows that you go to. It's not just what new performer is out there with like a certain corset and how can I do something that's kind of similar. And it's like you just kind of get this ever decreasing circle of uncreativity if you're always looking at kind of the end result rather than primary source material. And so I think that, even if people find other ways to create, like just traveling or singing or a musical instrument or painting or sewing or knitting or whatever the heck it is, it's just a way to just feed the inspiration with things that aren't so obvious. And that's where you get the really original stuff coming out.
But I also feel like the more you do, the more opportunity will come your way. And those opportunities can lead to amazing things that may not be, on the straight burlesque path, but it's still going to get you publicity. It's still going to get you exposure and opportunity and artistic growth.
Oh, totally. And, like you say, just say yes and figure out how to do it later. And there's totally things where I thought, oh, I wouldn't try that because I don't, that I probably wouldn't be good at it. But then you try it and you think, oh, hey, I didn't know that I'd be really good at that,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, always challenge yourself. And also, there's just so many directions that it can go, particularly with COVID and some of the super imaginative things that have come out of it, including your podcast. It's just like, oh my God, you're an incredible hostess. Yay. I'm so happy to be a part of it. But, people trying their hands at different things. It's like, yes, that's what it's about. Let's see where all the real creativity. Yeah, absolutely.
It forces you to grow for sure. So I feel like you've set a really high bar throughout your entire career with everything that you've done, which has helped inspire and fuel the whole neo-burlesque revolution, the Renaissance, which I certainly hope is here to stay and continues to grow. Are you happy with where the industry is now? Is it where you thought it would be?
Oh, I mean, it's exceeded all my expectations that it could grow to be so popular, and you don't even need to explain what it is anymore. It's like, wow, it's in the common vernacular now. And I just love that, theatres are throwing open their doors, and, it's not just this battle to kind of be seen as legitimate entertainment and accomplished, because there was this kind of snobbery. It's like, but you don't need to have passed any ballet exams to do that. And it's like, well, and I'm certainly not comparing it to ballet either, by the way. But I'm not saying we go through that kind of training, but nonetheless, are very accomplished performers. And, I just love that there's the stage time. And I love how much beauteousness is coming out from drag and, and the boylesque. And it's just, I couldn't have imagined 20 years ago that it could have so much variety and in so many countries, and for people to kind of see the joy. And, I'm just super excited to see where it goes next, because, it already feels really expansive. And yes. And I love the energy, and there's just so many up and coming wonderful performers who are bringing something new and different as well, and their own influences. And I can't wait to see where it goes next.
It's exciting. So with its tremendous popularity and increase, you see burlesque in America. It's everywhere now. It's in every town. There's multiple shows. Well, not right now, but when this is all over.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an oversaturation or a danger with oversaturation?
I think that's going to happen with no matter what genre has its kind of in the spotlight sort of popularity years, because, let's face it, entertainment is cyclical, and burlesque did have wilderness years, and certainly in the UK, cabaret and variety had years where it was seen as really naff, and, variety was like, oof, the only thing we had was like the Royal Variety Show. And, and it's great that the word cabaret for the UK has lost its 20 years of naffness kind of label, and is back in favor as a genre. And I think that, everything is cyclical, and I think it comes with the territory that there will be things that are watered down or that become, what can I say? I guess it looks like a token of burlesque, but that's not the real deal. And again, I think that comes from just not really doing your research, and people who think it's probably a way to a quick buck, and how can I do this and kind of cash in on what is possibly what can I say, a bandwagon, because anything that's super popular, you could use the word bandwagon. I don't think burlesque is bandwagon. Its roots are too deep, but there are going to be entertainers who maybe aren't making the money in other genres and go, oh, maybe I can just try that for a bit, and so we'll sling on a leotard with a few rwrhinestones and buy a pair of feather fans. And it's like, well, yeah, that might work for a little while. But, I wouldn't I wouldn't think you'd have the longevity. So I think that, you can see in certain areas where venue producers, and I'm not talking about people who come up through burlesque who really care about the level of burlesque, but venue producers who just want to get bums on seats, get them buying drinks, and they're like, well, I don't need to pay $1,000 or whatever the price is, when I can put someone on who's okay and I don't get any complaints, and I can pay her $80. And then you suddenly, the performers are like doing gigs for money that doesn't cover their dry cleaning. And then, and in that sense, there is an unfortunate dilution there. But those things all just kind of die out anyway, I think. And I just think it comes with the territory. I think there's an audience for every kind of thing, and each show will find its own audience. And I think there's room for it all, and it will find its own level as to which ones survive or don't survive. And I think that performers should just, stay really strong in their confidence in themselves. And so long as you're turning out, really good work, then just know your worth and know your value, and don't start pricing yourself down or out to a point where you're thinking, but I can't even sustain the investment I need to make. It doesn't help anyone, And I just think performers should just, be strong in knowing what their value is.
And go high. Aim high. That's what I always tell people. I've gotten so many. Yeah, you have to go high. I've done gigs for people, and they'll call me back and they'll say, well, this person will do it for, nothing really. And I'm like, well, then go and hire that person. It totally makes it not worth it for me.
1,000%.
Yeah, we have to just aim a bit higher, but I'm with you as well. Where I think it's bound to happen when a niche entertainment starts to move into the mainstream and gets more popular. The market is going to get saturated a bit, but there is room for everybody. And I always think of it as like, look at like rockabilly. There's Brian Setzer playing at Carnegie Hall, and there's a little band at the rodeo bar on a shoebox. Right.
There are audiences for all of them and everything in between. And it's like, listen, if people are buying tickets, well, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think, what has been the most treasured experience of your career? What moment do you think of and just, yes, I did it?
Oh my goodness.
If there's one.
Oh, did you have to ask me that? There is... I don't want to. Oh my God, there's so many.
I know.
There really are, because you're like, how do I quantify it? Is it like the time that I went to a country that I never would have traveled to, or is it the time when there was someone special sitting in an audience, but it wasn't necessarily the biggest show, or was it? I don't know. I guess I would have to say, therefore, it would be Exotic World, because I guess it was just acceptance from the people who had already walked that path and created that path for the rest of us, and for them to sort of acknowledge that was like, okay, I didn't waste my opportunity. I did it. I paid homage and put the work in, and I got the nod. They were like, yeah, it's good, you've done it. We accept you.
I felt like that was a good time in Exotic World too. I remember the year I won too, and one of the judges was Satan's Angel, and I was like, oh my God, Satan's Angel! Like, you just to get that approval from them, which they didn't throw them out freely.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
What's next for me? Oh my goodness. Well, let's see when we get out of confinement. What's next? I'm just I'm looking forward to certainly being able to connect with people and an audience once again. That would be wonderful. I just have this kind of aversion to doing any online performances because it doesn't really translate. I think you've got to be in the theatre with people. So I am at the moment curating some luxury retreats in Monaco and in Provence for people to come and experience the Immodesty, La Vie en Rose way of life in the south of France. And so once we can all travel freely again and theatres are open again, then I can get back to pasties and rhinestones and feathers.
Yes, seriously. That sounds pretty amazing. And how can everyone follow you and find out more and see what you're up to?
You can see my website, which is immodestyblaze.com, and follow me on Instagram with my handle at Immodesty Blaize.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. This has been such an amazing conversation. It's beautiful to hear your voice and see your face.
And you. Yay.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Bump and Grind with burlesque queen and legend Immodesty Blaize. If you enjoyed the interview, please be sure to leave a good review wherever you are streaming your podcast, and follow and subscribe to us so we can continue to bring the stage to you with the Bump and Grind. Until next time, I'll see you backstage behind those velvety curtains on next week's edition of the Bump and Grind.
This has been a Giant Panda King production. You can find us at giantpandaking.com and on Instagram at giantpandaking.